Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. And I am absolutely thrilled with today's guest. It's William Adams, MD. He's a board-certified plastic surgeon in private practice in Dallas, Texas. Little competitive there. And here's the big news. He is the brand new president of the Aesthetic Society, formerly known as the American Society for Plastic Surgery. So welcome to Beauty in the Biz, Dr. Adams. It is a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, Catherine. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm just so glad you carved out a minute for me. So I'll probably talk fast here, so I know you're on a clock. So just out of curiosity, why did ASAPs change their name? I didn't understand that.
Well, our official, the charter and our business name is still the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. But in terms of what we're calling ourselves and what people refer to us, we felt like so many people, it's a long name, and they don't really, it's hard to, they say ASAPs, and you ask people what ASAP stands for, and nobody can even tell you what the acronym stands for. So, the society has always been about aesthetics, and so it made sense to rebrand a little bit just and call ourselves the Aesthetic Society, because we are all about aesthetics. We're about educating surgeons how to be the best aesthetic surgeons and to practice the best aesthetic medicine that they can. And so that's really the impetus for us to change our name just to simply the Aesthetic Society.
Well, I'm glad you did, because it is a lot easier. Do you know most people do not understand ASAPs? They always say the Aesthetic Society of plastic surgeons, for plastic surgery. Nobody ever got that straight. I was corrected one time at a meeting going, oh, I'm sorry. I guess I called it the wrong thing. So I think that was a good move. I'm surprised nobody else took the aestheticsociety.com. That was a good one. Or I guess,
right.
Yeah. So did you become president? Do they pass off the, what do you call it, the gavel at the meeting? They
did.
Yeah.
It's at the business meeting. So, there's at our annual meeting, which was fantastic, that we actually, we got together live. Actually, the first live in-person big plastic surgery meeting in the country. But so it's fantastic to do that live meeting in Miami. But yeah, at the business meeting that we have every year annually, that's where the gavel gets passed. So I received it, and now I'm serving as president.
All right, so now the clock is ticking. That happened last month, so now you've got 12 months to make an impact. So what is your plan, or what are your goals, or what kind of technology are you going to introduce? Like, what's up? What's going to happen with the Aesthetic Society under your thumb?
Yeah, so, so my background is in education. I was education commissioner for 3 years prior to this, and then I was program chair, and I ran Hot Topics prior to that. So I've always been heavily in education, and so there's a few things we'll talk about. One is that, and you know this from talking about business, but many people in business they know what they do, but a lot of people don't really know why they do it. And there's actually a really good YouTube video on that by Simon Sinek. But at the Aesthetic Society, our why is we educate. And that we just like we're saying or talking earlier, we educate surgeons how to be the best aesthetic surgeons, which translates in giving their patients the best outcomes. And so that's been what the society has been built on for the past 53 years. So we really, the first thing I said to my board is that I wanted to make sure we kind of refocused ourselves on what our why is, and that just means that everything we do somehow gets back to what we do is educating people on aesthetic plastic surgery. Now, obviously, we do more than that, and one of the things that we've been working on now for 5 years is investing in some really cool digital technologies. And so there's 3 actually that now are either fully developed and implemented, which are the first 2 I'll talk about, and then the third is in development. But so 5 years ago, we launched something called it's called the Aesthetic Neural Network. And so what that is a technology that's very novel. And our technology partner who's helped us with all this and developed this is called Anzu. And so they had a technology that allows the system to go out into people's, say, EMRs and pull out information. And it's really kind of more of a practice management modality or utility where people, they don't have to enter any data. This is all done kind of, we call it frictionless, where it pulls out information. And it has a very high level business intelligence software that can look at your practice. It can tell you a lot of different information about your practice, tells you, it can give you benchmarking to how your practice is doing to other people in your area or other people around the country. It can tell you, for example, what's your best ROI for your non-surgical procedures or surgical procedures. And then it can also help you do things like hyper-target your marketing based on that information. So Ann was kind of the first thing that we developed. And then the second thing, which we just launched in January, is called Aesthetic One. So Aesthetic One is a very novel app. It's the only app of this type in the world. It's a two-facing app. So what I mean by that is that basically there's a surgeon side to that app and there's a patient side. One of the things that Aesthetic One does that we just started with is basically registering our breast implants. Now, the neat thing about that is not only is that has been a time-consuming thing, paperwork sometimes gets put in the drawer for a while, but this is extremely fast because it integrates with Ann, the thing we talked about earlier, and it allows. Most of us do it ourselves. Our staff can use it too, but we do it in the operating room. So like I did 3 surgeries today. I pull up my mobile device, it has the Aesthetic Neural Web Network on it. I bring up the patient, which is automatically populated into the app for its integration with Ann. No data entry. I pick the patient. I scan the implant UDI code, and I enter some information about the operative report, and that goes directly to one of the 3 breast implant companies, and the implant's registered very rapidly. It takes about 40 seconds to do a patient. Then the next part of Aesthetic One is that patient side. So when we all presented at the FDA committee meeting a couple years ago, one of the things that we heard from patients is that, I got some card when I had my breast implant and now I can't find it. And that they were saying that we really need a better system for that. So what this is for patients is basically a digital passport for their implant information. And so my patients today, the minute I log on to register their implant, it says, send Mrs. Smith, a text. I hit a button. The patient gets a text that says, Dr. Adams is sending you an invitation to join Aesthetic One, the patient app. And so there's a patient facing part of that app. The patient goes on. All of a sudden now they get their implant card, all their implant information. They actually get some information about their surgery, just some basic things. But now they don't have to save a card or remember where they placed it. It's completely HIPAA compliant. The patient owns that. They have that for the rest of their life. So it's just a great thing. Now, there's more to it than that. There's a lot more that goes into Aesthetic One, probably that we can talk about today, but there's things like HIPAA compliant messaging so patients can communicate with the practice. They can send pictures in a HIPAA compliant fashion. We can do the same things. We can share pictures. Say sometimes in revision surgery, patients like to see, they're interested in something you found, and you can share that with them very easily on the patient app. There's ways that we can communicate in terms of even just getting feedback from patients, surveys or patient-reported outcomes. And then finally, so that's all that's live now, and we just invested in the third and final portion of this, which is called SATA, which stands for Studies, Execution, Transformation, and Analysis. And so basically you can think of that's the research component of these digital apps, and it integrates with those other 2 digital apps we talked about. And it's going to allow us to do anything from clinical trials to registries to simple studies to just analyzing those 2 other apps for data that's being put into those. And so it's something that is extremely unique. It will allow us to work with industry, for example, if they are interested in doing a clinical trial, that will be able to be done, and it's a fully FDA clinical trial compliant platform, HIPAA compliant, and it will revolutionize the way research will be done compared to what we've done in the past 20 years, which has really not been digital. It's been mostly on paper and that sort of thing. So we're really excited. That's one of the things that this last piece is being developed. We hope it will be finished out sometimes in the next 8 to 9 months. And we think that, data capture and studies, clinical trials, that's where everything is headed. That's really the epicenter where people want to be. And so we'd like to lead the way with that, and I think ultimately it's good. It's good for patients, and things that are good for patients are good for surgeons. And so that kind of fits our mission as educators and really overseers of the aesthetic plastic surgery realm.
Well, I would say that's a fantastic member benefit, because one of the things I do when consulting with plastic surgeons, almost every single time they say, so what's everyone else doing? Like, how they all want to know, not just benchmarking like with the big guys, because I'm not sure they just want to know what are the guys around them doing, kind of thing, and
Right.
Where do they compare? Where do they fit into that? Because you guys are so isolated in your private practices, especially since we've been locked down, and that's where I get the calls. They want to find out, am I where I should be, or am I supposed to be buying some different technology, or should I have my own OR, or should I stay at the hospital? Like, what's everyone else doing? So I think that's a great benefit, membership.
Yeah,
benefit.
and I think most of our members are just starting to realize the power of some of those analyses and reports that, and we actually just. Because, like I say, Ann's been going on for some time now. It's developed 5 years ago, and they're just actually in the past couple of months kind of upgraded some of the reports, the automatically generated reports, which are, as you just alluded to, it's fantastic information. It's just people need to figure out how it really can help them, and once they figure it out, they go, "Wow, I had no idea this did this." So it's very cool. It's very cutting edge.
Yeah.
So we're excited to really be doing what we're doing with that, and it's a big part of the Aesthetic Society right now.
Well, it also helped the memberships make better decisions, better business decisions, because the more data you have, how can you make half the decisions you make without the data? I've never understood that, because I do have an MBA, so I'm always, first thing I say is, show me your data. And then there's usually that's not an easy thing to do. So
yeah, and just another example of how just simple, but you're familiar with, everybody wants to see the annual statistics, right?
And I love that. Yeah.
Typically the way those have been done is you get an email and you have a form and you try to go through and figure out what you did. Well, this is the first year ours was done completely through Ann. Because
nice.
It goes in and can pull. And so the thing about that is the internal relevance of Ann is extremely high, whereas surveys, the problem is that a lot of times it's somebody, say maybe somebody in the office that's just filling out something. So the data it's not very good. It's not very clean data, but the AND data has a very high degree of internal relevance. And so that we thought that was, we just transitioned this year, and from this point forward, it's all going to be done that way. And just as you're saying, it's real data. It's not subject to a lot of the variances that you will get when you're just got somebody in the office filling out a survey.
Well, it never fails. I say to the doctor, so what's your conversion rate? And he always turns, Susan, what do you think our conversion rate is? It's all very anecdotal. So I think it's so good to have really accurate data that nobody has to fiddle with. If you have somehow figured out how to get that out of the EMR, because I got to tell you, those reports and those EMR reports can be a hassle, a really big hassle. So if you can get that data out without bugging the staff for it, wow, that's good for you. So let's shift gears and talk about the industry, because it has been such a roller coaster. I've been around for all we've had recessions and fires and all sorts of stuff. And then we've had really big peak times and very low valley times. And now COVID was such a god awful thing that happened and just shut everybody down for a month, and it looked like, the sky was falling. And then sure enough, the doors opened, and could the demand be any bigger? Like everybody, all of a sudden it became plastic surgery is a necessity. It is not, a nice thing. I don't know. There were a lot of, what do you think went into that? Because I'm sure you've experienced that too. Everybody's been super crazy, busy, booked out.
Yes, it's actually been, obviously we feel very fortunate because I think, just as you said, like people were really freaked out that first month when pretty much everybody was shut down. But, I think there's a lot of factors that go into what we've seen. Certainly, we've seen this now for many, many years that people do prioritize some of these aesthetic treatments, particularly, say, non-surgical treatments that they're doing. So whether it's neurotoxins or fillers, those are things that, if somebody's got a choice to get, they're going to go out to dinner one more time that month or get their neurotoxin or filler, they tend to do the latter because it's something that's important to them. And again, people want to look good. They want to feel good. And these things that we do have, proven benefits to people's quality of life. So I think that, that's always been there. But there's a lot of other factors too. With COVID, I think people were sitting at home. They're looking at themselves, the whole thing with whether it's FaceTime things or Zoom or whatever, people are seeing themselves on those. They've got a lot more time on their hands that they had. So they're kind of seeing themselves. They probably, I think I saw different things. Some people really got into working out. Some people got into, having a couple beers and not working out. But then I think the other thing was that it was very variable around the country, but certainly travel was much more difficult. So you had people a lot more time on their hands. You had people that normally went on vacation but they didn't do that. So then they had, more time. They had extra money because they weren't spending it on other things they typically spend it on. And they were already familiar with a lot of the great things that we do in aesthetic plastic surgery. And we just saw this pent up demand of people. It was kind of bimodal because initially we had in Texas, and I was fortunate because I think our governor did a fantastic job of managing what we had to do, and but we actually got back pretty quick. So there was about a 3.5 or 4 week period in April that we were closed basically, but then we very quickly in the beginning of May, we started back operating. And so all the patients that were scheduled in April kept calling, when can I have my surgery? So they all got, I think I had one patient out of maybe 35 people that were scheduled in April that decided not to have surgery. Everybody else wanted to be put back as soon as they could. So all those people came on. And then there was a whole group of other people that just, they had extra time. They might have some extra money, and they had time to research things that they otherwise may not have had as much time. And so you saw that this wasn't just this pent up backlog. It was like that plus all these new people that maybe had thought about it but never had time to research it or didn't have the time to take off. And I think that's where you saw that this continued increase in people's workload and patients come to their office and wanting to do procedures, whether they're non-surgical and surgical. And, I think the other thing that follows that is, that our industry follows the economy, it follows the consumer confidence, and that has been quite good. We'll see. Hopefully that'll continue. But
what do you think, though? Do you think it'll last?
I think things have been so busy that I think it's probably unreasonable to think that's going to continue. So I think we're going to see. Now you have, I think, almost all 50 states are almost fully open. Yeah. People are going back to in-person offices. I think that there's going to be although it will remain popular, I think that it's not going to continue at the current pace. And I think economics are, there's certainly more uncertainty about the economy right now than there was, 6 months ago. And so I think that also may have some effects, and even simple things, gas prices, things like that. That affects patients. The reality, if you're paying, 100% more than you paid for a gallon of gas, right now, that can have some effects on just the way you think about life and, spending, discretionary funds, things like that.
I think you're so right about the patients had time to research. Because when we were all sitting at home, like I'm in California, so we've been home forever. It's just a joke here. But sorry, California has not handled this well at all, is my only political statement. And so everyone was sitting still. And the internet usage sky high, like just skyrocketed. And I think, especially cosmetic patients, they've been thinking about this forever, but they finally got to sit still and say, okay, what is all this? And they started attending webinars and researching like crazy and going to YouTube and Instagram. And I think, and they had to downtime, and here comes a bunch of money to them. So all of that just, wow, because at first I thought, oh no, here goes our industry. And then it went, no, our industry, all the money went over to plastic surgery, it seems like. And I thought, this is amazing. Every time I think I know what's going on in the world, I don't. It's such a crapshoot, and the uncertainty isn't stopping the patients. So I just think I would just enjoy it, I mean, you guys.
Yeah, and I think this goes to as proof of just the popularity of aesthetic plastic surgery now. It's always been popular, but even in the past 10 years, there's more and more acceptance of plastic surgery. And 20 years ago, it was like, you're looking around the corner to hide because you don't want anybody to know you have plastic surgery. Now it's almost like, if you're not doing plastic surgery, what's wrong with you? That's the way friends are talking to their friends. Like, what's wrong with you? You haven't done anything, So it's definitely the popularity and acceptance of these procedures has clearly come full circle, over that time. So it's kind of been the perfect storm, so to speak, and. We'll see where it goes. Clearly, plastic surgery is here to stay, and
for sure.
There's always going to be a market for it. But this market has been really robust the past. We're right at like 11 months. Haven't seen a lot of changes yet.
As the president then of the Aesthetic Society, give me like your top 2 or 3 concerns for plastic surgeons to compete, survive, what do you think the challenges are?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge is it's tough for patients to differentiate. If you're a member of the Aesthetic Society, you see that emblem, or we have a new logo now, but you see that, and as a patient that member has been vetted. So you cannot be a member of our society without going through an approved training program, and then also being board certified, which is another certification process that you do after your training program. So all of our members are fully vetted, but that can be a tough thing for patients to try to figure that out just on their own, because they may not even know that about. Say they see this person's an aesthetic society member, but there's so many people doing this aesthetic surgery now, cosmetic surgery, and frankly, so I always tell my fellows, a lot of times everything's about the money, and if it's not about the money, it's about the money, and that's why you have so many people doing cosmetic surgery because they're not trained in it at all, but they're doing it because people pay cash for it and they see it as the easy way to make money. And unfortunately, the loser in that is the patients, because there's issues. There's no way somebody that's gone to a weekend course about a surgical procedure that has no formal surgical training, they might be able to do. It's just amazing to me that this can happen. Is they might be able to do some cases and get an okay result, but eventually it's not going to turn out well. And then, we're not talking about just surgery is like the glaring thing that you see, but, there's a lot of non-surgical procedures. Those are not, those can have a lot of potential complications or just bad results. So there's a reason why it takes us 7 or 8 years to train fully train a plastic surgery resident.
This is what I tell the surgeons I consult with. I say, you know what board certified means. Nobody else does. Just assume that patient has no clue how great you are. You know how great you are, but I think you have to visually educate the patient on what that means to them, like why they want to choose you over someone else. And I have this really cool signage. I can send it to you if you want. And the doctor, so I put the doctor on there and I say, what is board certified? And we literally visually show. Well, you went to college like everyone else. Then you went to grad school. Then you went to like medical school, residency, fellowship, blah, blah, blah. And you're like 14 years of it. And that's how you visually show somebody what that means. And then I would also put on there like count up all the surgeries you've done. So you've done 2,000 blephs, you've done 2,000 tummy tucks, you've done 4,000 rhinos. You have to really, and you put all your PR logos on it, and your hospital logos if you, or your universities if you went to a really well-known one. The point being, visually, you want the patients to see, wow, you really are all that,
Yeah. Yeah, and plastic surgeons are some of the most highly trained surgeons in medicine. It's just how much training they go through. The diversity of our specialty is phenomenal. From reconstructive trauma to microsurgery to craniofacial surgery in children, cleft lip, palate, to cancer-based reconstruction, and then that's all hand surgery, other ththings, and then we get into aesthetic plastic surgery, which is a whole nother specialty. So, and then that's really where so the surgeons are very highly trained, but even with that, there's people that really specialize within, say, aesthetic plastic surgery. And what I always say to patients, you want to go to, you're not going to take your Mercedes to the Yugo dealership to get worked on. You're going to take the people that know how to do that. So you do need to do your homework as a patient, and really there's people that have a specific expertise, and you see that a lot in aesthetic plastic surgery that they have really honed down what they do, and those are the true experts in the different procedures, and so that's really, I think, in terms of what we view our membership of the Aesthetic Society, we're really the people that have focused on, number one, aesthetic plastic surgery, and a lot of our members do kind of almost subspecialize in certain areas, and so that those are the people that certainly are operating and delivering care at the highest level.
So what are you telling the membership regarding plastic surgery meshing with non-surgical treatments? A lot of the surgeons say to me, no, I just want to do surgery. I don't care about any of the rest. The others say, well, I better catch the patient where they are, and if they're only at Botox right now, they're certainly going to go up that ladder, because once Botox is our heroin or something. So once you've had that, you're just dying to have some more. And especially as females, oh my gosh, we fix one body part and we just go right on to the next concern we have. And it's just a never-ending, beautifully relentless marketplace, that you have. So how are you handling that?
It's funny you asked that, because I had one of my closest mentors used to say, again, this is like, the whole non-surgical boom has really been the past 20 years, but maybe 20 years ago, he would say to me, you got to decide if you want to be a surgeon or a squirter, and which is kind of a jab at the non-surgical stuff. But the truth is that the non-surgical stuff is a hugely important aspect of an aesthetic plastic surgeon's practice. So, we all view ourselves, and we were originally trained as surgeons, but what's evolved is that, and that's why we call it, it's not just aesthetic surgery, it's aesthetic medicine.
Gotcha.
And so it's really, important, because, as you say, the number of non-surgical procedures being done, whether it's Botox, neurotoxins, fillers, is dwarfs the number of surgical procedures being done. So, and they're very popular, and it's because they work well, and there's things that your surgical patients are going to want that are non-surgical. So it makes sense for you to be able to offer your group of patients both non-surgical and surgical procedures. To that end, I just opened a medical spa a year and a half ago here in Dallas for that reason. Because I was primarily surgical, a little bit. A little bit. I had a very small kind of injectable practice, but yeah, I mean, the procedures now and the offerings that we're able to do in a non-surgical setting is really incredible. And it didn't exist 20 years ago, but now it does. And some of the things, you can do certain things non-surgically that you can't do surgically. A good example of that is people that say are having a facelift. There's going to be surgical components to that, the descent, maybe adding some volume of fat, things like that. But there's also the skin is another component of that. It's not a surgical solution. It's a non-surgical solution. So you kind of have these two things. If you want to give the patient the best result, you're going to have some expertise and modalities in both of those. So it's something your patients want, and frankly, if people are there are some people that just say, look, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't want to do it, I'm going to do surgery. Well, but then, their patients are obviously going to be going elsewhere to do the non-surgical, because the vast majority of people that do surgical plastic surgery are doing some sort of non-surgical plastic surgery.
Absolutely. They really will. A patient will enter so many different doors to the aesthetic world. And if you don't develop that relationship early on, it's a tough one to say, I just want one part of that. Tell the patient, you just come to me for your bleph, and you go elsewhere. Elsewhere, they'll never find their way back to you, because it's just like a huge jungle out there, and they're trying to find their way. I even know a lot about this industry, and God knows I partake all the time, and you just can't help yourself. And I know better, but it's like, I need a facelift. But you know what? I could probably, get away with a little more, for another year. But boy, I better be developing a relationship with somebody, because I'm going for surgery here sooner or later. So
I think that's such an important point, because we talked about Ann earlier, but one of the things that business intelligence software does, it'll tell you that the lifetime value of a patient is in your practice. That, if somebody comes in for one surgical procedure, that's great, but people are amazed. If you look at what that patient is to you in a monetary value over the lifetime of your practice, it's crazy. Most people don't realize that. And so it really does make sense for a lot of reasons to try to maintain and offer, the full gamut of aesthetic medicine things to patients, just because it just makes sense, and you get to stay in contact with your patients, and we follow, for example, our breast implant patients are followed we follow them annually. But if we're seeing them for other things, it makes it easier. And then say, by the way, 5 years now, you should get an ultrasound. We should do an ultrasound to look at your implant. We do that as well. So we offer all these things, and they do complement each other. And I think, I think it's better for patients in a lot of ways, and I think it's better for the practice.
I just know if surgeons would think about the value of a patient, the lifetime value of a patient versus that one and done mentality, I don't see how you're going to compete down the road when things get tough again, because they always do. I think you better have a big corral of loyal patients who love you, who will come back again and again. And I'm one of those patients. I'll keep coming back. If you're there and you're nice to me, I'm all over that. Anyway, let's talk about marketing, because it is so intense, and you're in Dallas. It's super competitive there. How are you marketing your practice or differentiating yourself amongst all the others? And I do know, talk about your project, the Plastic Surgery Channel. That was genius.
Yeah, Plastic Surgery Channel is it's really that was really more of a little different. It's not really. It does serve as a great marketing asset for plastic surgeons, are part of it. But I didn't really start it necessarily to market myself, although I use it. But it is, my biggest thing is, and this is the Plastic Surgery Channel is a media company, and we specialize in high-level doctor-delivered video content on plastic surgery. And those assets that we create are used by our subscribers on their websites and social media and marketing to their patients for them to connect with their community and patients. The interesting thing is, and that's kind of how I look at marketing, if you look at the data, the number one marketing asset for any practice is video. And that's evolved, certainly wasn't that case 20 years ago, but now, patients don't necessarily want to read things on websites. They want to look at a video. And so that's where we started a Plastic Surgery Channel. That was not because we had predicted that, but that was, we started that 11 years ago. But it turns out that we kind of got into the right area. And I do think video has been very important for my own internal marketing of my practice. And because what we see is, people always want to say, well, what's the ROI? Well, it's very hard now to ROI. I think came up when people had 1-800 number and they do it and they could track it. Okay, I got this many calls from this thing that I paid for, and that's the ROI. It's not that way anymore because there's too much crossover amongst all these different digital technologies. Patients may have gone to your website, they went to some other place, something like your social media account or to Real Self or wherever, and they found you. But they went to multiple different sites. Patients spend all this time and go on lots of different sources before they ever even come in for a consult. And so you really have no idea what way they get to you. But what they do remember is watching videos of you. So I've really tried to use video heavily in our marketing, particularly on our website, and using those assets. And what happens is you find patients come in and go, I watched all your videos and I feel like I already know you. And not only is that great because maybe they connected with you, but you tend to, if somebody doesn't connect with you, then they may not come in and see you, which is probably better for both of you.
Right.
But if they've already connected with you, they tend to be higher converters. They tend to already know your philosophy. They tend to be better educated. So it's just a win-win for everybody. And so that's what that's really been my focus the past 10 years is for my own practice has been video, and certainly in Plastic Surgery Channel we've tried to really facilitate making it easy and efficient for surgeons to get those assets that they're able to use to connect back with their community and patients.
I know so many doctors are so awkward about this and, video, if they're not, because actually usually most surgeons are introverted, that's why they became surgeons. But now they have to be, actors and Steven Spielberg. But I always say just be authentic and, be yourself, be authentic, although your channel would help them look more professional. And just the branding of that adds so much authority to it. But don't you love when a patient shows up, the patient who has watched that. Aren't they open to you and your suggestions? Aren't they literally saying to you, God, like you can see in their face, like, God, I feel like I know you already. Oh, you're much taller than I thought you were going to be, That is,
Exactly.
your life just is so much easier. A consultation becomes more like a chit chat, not this push and pull and you don't try to sell me, don't try to oversell me, So I'm a big firm believer in video. Now, what the challenge is going to be? Google is going to make a very big deal this year out of website speed. And website speed and videos don't go well together. I'm just saying, I don't know how to fix that yet, but I'm working on it. But I don't see how you've got to have video, but then you also have to have a fast website.
Yes, we've actually looked at that at Plastic Surgery Channel for some time. And so one of the simple things is that the ideal thing is not to serve videos directly from your website because it bogs things down. Mm-hmm. So we actually provide our subscribers with, they're able to utilize our video cloud, which is all the videos there. There's some other additional benefits to doing that. And one of them is that the players that we use are the fastest loading players in the industry and some things like that. And I think I think it's very astute because that speed of websites has always been important, but I've heard that it's going to become more important. So I think kind of structuring some things like that, if you've got a lot of video, is going to be critical.
Oh, good tip though. So are they staying in your world, but when they click on a video, they go to a video cloud? Do they know they're leaving
you can't even tell. They never leave the doctor's website. It just happens to be served from our video cloud. We didn't develop this. We actually use the third party called Brightcove, which is the biggest kind of video serving cloud in the world. But the beauty is that they're able to use that asset at much lower cost, because if you want to get a Brightcove cloud on your own, it's going to cost you quite a bit of money, whereas they basically are able to serve their videos from our cloud, Plastic Surgery Channel's cloud, but it's seamless. It's on their website. It also gives them, there's other recommendations we give our members in terms of how to leverage video on their website. You need to have things like video, not just a photo gallery. You need to have a video gallery and have that on your top navigation and direct people to videos. You want the videos not only your individual pages, but then you need a library of video, and all those things are able to be given to any individual practice, but it just looks like it's on their website, but it's really not being housed on their website. It's just being served off their website from the external cloud.
Okay, good idea, good tip. Thank you for that one. And the last thing about marketing, we have to talk about social media, because social media and plastic surgery don't always get along. And also the membership, your society has been very stringent about how doctors should market themselves. I was around when the days when nobody even marketed. The best you could do is a yellow page ad, or your colleagues would crucify you. And now it's been the wild, wild west. What is the aesthetic society's feeling about social media? The doctors showing everything, like really going behind the scenes there and offering coupons and discounts and raffles for free surgery. How do you all feel about that?
Yeah, well, we're not very fond of that type of marketing. In fact, you probably know this. I mean, we have a code of ethics that our members are bound by, and there is clauses that specifically address that type of social media marketing, and it's frankly not permitted on our code of ethics. And there's some gray areas of that, but the problem is, and we've seen this time and time again, if you're operating on a patient, but you're filming it and you're really trying to be a showman, then you're not really doing what you need to do to do the surgery, and it doesn't reflect well necessarily on the specialty, but it's also just not. It's just not. I don't think it's a good approach. And so social media certainly has its good points. But yeah, our code of ethics doesn't permit people to do that. Obviously, there's a lot of people that have done that sort of thing, and it gets into kind of just the whole era that we're in. That via social media and some things on the internet, sometimes expertise it's just felt like how many posts somebody has or how many views somebody does. But that's now. That doesn't necessarily correlate with expertise, and that's something that I think patients struggle with.
Well, what really surprised me, the patients can't get enough of that. I watch, Instagram, and you watch the views and the followers, and you think, dear God, I remember watching my first surgery, and I thought, I'm not going to make it through this. And now I've been to so many meetings, I feel like I could almost do a facelift, but it's so gory, and I thought, oh my God, you're going to turn everyone off. Like no one's ever going to watch you. And it turns out, nope, they love it. Can't get enough of it. Or maybe a certain group of patients can't get enough of it. I'll bet that's more demographics, or who knows? But I got to tell you, most of them are doing it because the audience is loving it, and it's working.
Yeah, and it's just some changes in our culture a little bit in terms of. Because that type of thing probably wasn't 20 years ago. That wasn't popular at all. And then I think the first show, that kind of reality show that came out, was Extreme Makeover, and then there's been so many since then. And you're right, as time goes on, they've gotten more and more graphic, and following patients' journey through plastic surgery. All these reality shows have been popular, and now there's even more more so obviously on networks, there's some limitations what can be shown, but certainly on social media and the internet, and YouTube, I mean, you see everything. It's just it's out there. So.
Yeah. One last thing about plastic surgery. What about destination plastic surgery? I actually gave a talk in Florida, and it was I can't remember the name. They used a different name than destination plastic surgery, but I was shocked at the enormousness of the conference. Thousands and thousands of people, thousands of booths. It was a huge business that I had no idea. And now a lot of it wasn't plastic surgery. It was, hip removal. But is that an issue, or how are you, the Aesthetic Society, how are you addressing that?
Yeah, it's a big issue. Yeah, and so we call that medical tourism.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'd say is I differentiate. There's medical tourism is not really talking about because I have many very close international friends. Some of the most famous people in the world that are some of the best surgeons in the world at certain areas of plastic surgery. So if there's a patient that decides they want to go see somebody in, say, Sweden or Australia because of their expertise, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is kind of cut rate plastic surgery, often coupled with almost where it's like a vacation. So come do this, you spend a week at the resort, you get your plastic surgery. Those are very different. And we have all seen a lot of issues with some of those patients, and at the end of the day, it's always about the money. And so it's low cut rate plastic surgery where people go off, but they tend not to see their physician. There's very minimal follow up. They still are spending not insignificant amounts of money to go do this, but then they're coming back. And then what happens when they have a problem, there's nobody there that has a clue what they had done. There may be thousands of miles away from where they had the surgery, and it creates a really bad situation, even quite dangerous situations for some patients. So we've seen patients here in Dallas that have been elsewhere and had surgeries, and I think there's places I know all over the place. I know a lot of my colleagues in California have seen patients that have been to places like that. So I think everybody around the world, even because this is not unique just to the United States, it's a global issue. My friends in Australia see patients all the time that are going to some of the things, different kind of medical tourism things that are offered in other areas of other countries, and then coming back to Australia. So it's a problem. I think the message to patients is that sometimes, you just got to take a step back and a deep breath and really look at something and really think about these are, even though surgery might seem like, it's going to be easy recovery, it might be this, but they're big surgeries and there can be big complications. And do you want to go somewhere where you really don't know the doctor and you may not meet them till the day of surgery? And we're there for our patients, and our patients, I think, appreciate that, and it's and you just don't get that when you're going elsewhere and doing these cut rate trips, and it creates dangerous situations in a lot of the cases.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing that. I've been to Australia. It takes a whole day to be on a plane to get to Australia. I cannot imagine having had surgery and traveling. That sounds brutal to me. Anyway, on a more personal note, so now you're the president of the Aesthetic Society. You're also a husband, a father of how many kids? 2?
2 children, yeah.
Okay, and you like to exercise. What are you going to have to give up this year? Oh, and do you still run a practice while you're president?
Absolutely, yeah. I do. I've actually been, again, my kind of love and what I've really focused on through my 20 plus years of doing things in the Aesthetic Society and our foundation called the Aesthetic Surgery Research Foundation has been education. So, I actually, believe it or not, every year until COVID, for the past probably 12 years, I'm usually out of town at least 3 months a year, typically doing education. Yeah. So I'm used to kind of being busy and figuring out how to continue to have a thriving practice. So yeah, so I will continue to practice. I'm going to be similarly busy in the society, doing slightly different things as president than I was necessarily the past few years, which is really putting on all of our symposium meetings. So now I have some great people that now come up behind me. Now they're taking care of that. So I've got some other concerns as Aesthetic Society president. But yeah, I mean, you have to have balance. And you mentioned my family. I'm still, I'm a program director for our aesthetic fellowship at UT Southwestern, and I'm still a part-time associate professor at UT Southwestern. But I started my career full-time. And one of the reasons that I went part-time was really because I was starting to have a family, and I wanted to make sure I could control my time and destiny a little bit better. So a lot of my time, even a lot of my travel has been, like, for example, going on hockey trips with my son, with him because he's big into hockey, and spending times with the family. So you have to have that balance. And fortunately, we have a great society, and it's what we do can be demanding when you're in leadership, but it's also the society is, I think, very in tune that you've got to have a balance. And so I think most people are able to continue, with obviously their obligations as fathers and mothers and certainly their practice. Now, if you talk to my office manager, she might give you a different story, but yeah, it's a balance, and so it's a delicate balance sometimes, but it can be done, and it's always fulfilling.
Good for you. I don't think you're getting much sleep this year, though. I can't imagine because, wow. But good, kudos to you. And I'm sure it'll be a fantastic year. I congratulate you. I'll be watching, of course. And it's just a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been really, really great. And thanks for all you do. And hope to see you again soon.
Oh, I'm going to get back out there again. I've got to start traveling again. I'm really feeling cooped up. Okay, everyone, that's it for this week's Beauty in the Biz. And if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and subscribing to Beauty in the Biz and giving us a good review, that would be much appreciated. And if you've got any questions or feedback for Dr. Adams, is there some way for them to get a hold of you during your free time?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. They can actually contact me. I'm easily found. You can contact me right through my website, okay. Or they can certainly contact me through the Aesthetic Society. Okay. Same thing through the Aesthetic Society website, which we have a brand new website that's going to be launched in about a month, I think. So yeah, either of those routes, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Yes, you were easy to find. It's William Adams, MD, and he's all over the internet. And then if you've got any questions for me or feedback, please give them to me on my website at catherinemaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.